Hello, hello. Hi, this is Melanie Furst-Mayers, founder and CEO of Eden Mayers HR Consulting. I'm going to give it a few minutes just to let Facebook let people know that I'm live and check that I'm live. Okay. Yep, we seem to be live. Cool beans. Yay. So, hello lovely, lovely people. Oh, I'm a bit frozen on my screen. No, I'm just a bit delayed. Right, fantastic. Hello lovely, lovely people. So today I decided to get on live to have a chat with you about our latest case study. So I will put the link in the comments below and I'll pin it after this chat. But I just wanted to have a bit of a chat with you about when employee relationships are tragic. So this week our blog is all about how to use mediation as a way to fix conflict within your organisation. Now, often you find where you have individuals, then you'll always have some conflict because individuals are different and the people you work with are people you might not necessarily be friends with socially, although sometimes that can also be the issue if they have been friends socially and fallen out. So often there was a bit of tension, there was a bit of conflict within the office. There can be tension based on the way that people speak to each other, the way that they communicate by emails. You know, there's some people who are very one-wordy in responses to emails or texts. There are other people who are very wordy. There are people who don't like to be told what to do. They like to be asked to do things and things. So it can make for an interesting and sometimes fractious working environment. So I'm just going to tell you about a particular incident that happened with one of our clients and how we help them and give you some tips to help you be able to do the same thing. So if you're on live, do say hi. If you're watching this on replay, again, do say hi. Do give me your opinions on this subject or ask any questions that you might have. So for me, the interesting thing about HR is always the people. I love understanding how people's mind works. I love understanding how their business works and where their passions come from. And so part of what makes HR really interesting for me is all the different individuals and the dichotomy of how they get on and what their belief system is and all that great stuff. But I won't digress too much, because then I'll sound like a real booky person, and I do love my books. So often, as I said, we get challenges with individuals when they're at loggerheads. So one of our clients contacted us when they had a manager whose relationship with one of their team members had broken down to the point where they couldn't be in the same room as each other. So they worked in an open plan office, and so from that point of view it was okay, but the moment they got into a meeting when we were in close contact with each other, there always was some fraction, and inevitably what would happen was the team member would end up leaving and getting quite upset, to the point where they raised a grievance, which was investigated, and some of the recommendations that came out of that grievance was that they should try some mediation. The employers were very keen that we could try to fix it with mediation because they were both highly skilled in their roles, they were both performing amazingly in their roles individually, and they had skills that were quite niche and hard to come by in the UK anyway. And so they really wanted to make them work well together so that it didn't stand the risk of losing one or both of them. So we arranged a mediation session, and we, got in and sat down with them. We spoke about, what the ground rules were, and kind of opened up the floor to allow them to clear the air, to clarify any things that might have been misunderstood, and to set up a framework for their working relationship going forward. So after maybe 10-15 minutes, it became apparent that there were a couple of issues. So one was a cultural issue. So the manager was from a country where you were very subordinate to your leaders. You didn't question them, and you did what they were told without question. You just kind of got on with it and did it. Whereas the team member came from a country where being outspoken, being direct, speaking your mind is definitely part of the culture. I'll give you a point if you can guess what the two countries were. You can put it in the comments below and let me know what you think. So the challenges that they had were already that. So when the team member would be talking to the manager and saying, I don't think this is right, or why don't we do things a different way, it had already got the manager's back up, because as far as the manager was concerned, they shouldn't even be asking those questions. I've told you to do something, you just need to go and do it, and that's it, end of story. And so every time the team member kept speaking, the manager kept talking over them, to the point where we had to adjourn the meeting for me to, one, calm the team member down, but also for me to reiterate to the manager the importance of listening and not interrupting, and respecting that person's point of view, and not taking it quite so personally, as in not being so defensive about it. The point of mediation is you are accepting that both of you have a part to play in this, and that the two of you are also going to work together to fix it. So once we've done that and calmed the individuals down and got them back into a room again, they were able to speak clearly. Both of them were able to get that understanding. Now, it took about an hour and a half. So mediation sessions, aren't quick solutions. It took about an hour and a half of us really talking, clearing the air, getting an understanding of what the expectations of both people were, and then finding that compromise about how they work. So some of the compromise were, for example, that the manager had to accept the fact that the staff member did have some really valid points, and if he didn't feel comfortable in those being raised in a public forum, then the two of them should go to a room, sit down, have that discussion. So then he didn't feel like he was being what's the right word to look for, but being shown up, I guess is the right word, while he was having that conversation. So we kind of had a discussion about what they could do to build those relationships, what they could do to build those bridges, and we also talked about the way that they emailed one another, about the type of conversation they had, and we were very clear on what was appropriate work-wise and what was not appropriate work-wise. And to the end of that, we kind of had a working document that they both signed up to, and then we checked in with both individuals but also with our client, so sort of the managers to make sure that things were still working smoothly. And we kind of checked in at the 1 week, the kind of 2 week, the 4 week point, and the 6 week point, to make sure that everything was fine. And while they'll never be best friends, and the idea of them, just the two of them going to the pub and having a drink together would be rare, they did have a well-established working relationship that was respectful, and that they managed to work together well for at least a couple of years, until one parted company with our client. Now, mediation is really a really good way to get an understanding of your organisation and what works. Often, you know, when you're an entrepreneur and you're running around running your business, you often leave your team, you know, to kind of get on with things. You don't need to handhold them. You need them to get on with their job. You need to do what they need to do so you can do what you need to do. Sometimes these situations gives you the opportunity to just get in and dive into the team dynamic. It gets you to see if there's some things you might need to do, so some team building things that might need to be done, or some good stuff on looking at personality types. I've found, I mean, I've done quite a few different personality type work in my time, and I've found them to be really useful, because your personality type does to a certain extent change depending on your role and where you are and what's happening internally as well as externally. But there also are other things. So, for example, Colourworks is one of the ones that I've done that talks about sort of what your personality is generally, and then what your personality is at work. So I could look and see, okay, this is what my personality is generally, and then these are the things I work harder on in my business, because it's not natural to me, but I know I need to do it, and it gives. And then I could see how other people within my organisation were working, and I could see why I might get frustrated with a certain person because they work in a different way to me. And it was quite interesting to see that dynamic and how it works when you look at how two people approach a task. And even though the outcome is the same, the way that they work is different. And if you are two people who work in a different way, you might find that frustrating. Anyway. But I'll speak more about personality traits on another day. But I just wanted to give you a few tips for mediation. So if you are in a point where there's some conflict within your organisation, and you decide that mediation is the way to go, I've got a few tips for you. So one, both parties need to be up for the process. So it's pointless in having a meeting if someone's going to be sat there with their arms crossed, looking like thunder. If they're not going to engage in the process, nothing's going to happen. Number two, you need to set ground rules. So you need to be very clear about the respectfulness, the listening, around, you know, things that are being discussed, not leaving the room, and not being taken personally and dragged up again over and over again over time. You have to remember that you're there to facilitate. So you're there to facilitate the conversation, not to give your 2 pennies worth in, but to just facilitate and allow them to speak without it turning into a shouting match. The other thing is you mustn't be seen to take sides. So even though you might have an opinion on the situation, you are just there again to be a impartial person helping to resolve this issue. You are not supposed to take sides. Also, you need to remember that compromise is the key, and there's always normally a bit of middle ground somewhere if you think sometimes out of the box. You need to remember to listen actively without interruptions. So just really take time to listen, and if questions come on board, if suggestions come to mind, write them down. Have your notebook, write them down, get them note, and then you can talk about that once they've finished saying what they have to say. Also, remember, you can adjourn if it's getting a bit fractious. So if you can see frustration, if you can see upset, if you can see anger, you know, have a 5-minute, 10-minute adjournment. Let them, you know, someone walk around the block and take some fresh air and get a cup of tea or something. That always works well. It may also take more than one meeting to find a resolution. So one mediation meeting may not be enough, and you need to be aware of that it might take some time. And also, not every situation can be solved by mediation. So sometimes you do have to just admit these people are not going to work well together. Oh, that was weird. I had a phone call. You might have to find another solution for how you're going to get that to work. But it's always worth giving it a try. So just finally, you should definitely think about trying mediation if you have some conflict within your organisation. It does take time, but it is a really good way to understand the dynamics of the people involved. It's a really good way to see what other things might be bubbling under the surface. And also, it's just a good practice, even for yourself, to be really clear and not let issues fester. So if someone's done something that's upsetting or annoying to you, it's much better to put them to the side, have a conversation, discuss where your frustrations are coming from, and clear the air so you can continue to work successfully. So I hope you found that really useful. As I said, I will put the link to the blog version that's on our website in the comments below. Please like, comment, share, ask questions, and I will see you again next week. Have a fantastic rest of the day. Bye.